of law enforcement individuals who are against this. So sure, there's going to be one or two. I mean, you're never going to have anything that's universal. But when you have all of the groups that are the umbrella groups that support this, and the very fact that the minister had a report from the National Firearms Center given to him by the RCMP that he sat on, that he refused to release, I think shows you that they don't want the facts out on this, that they want to say these very misleading things about these ambiguous unnamed police officers, and then when you ask them for a specific example, they give you a random police chief somewhere who has a divergent opinion. Okay. I'm talking about the associations that represent our police and our police chiefs who are unanimous in saying this registry is needed to keep our communities safe.
Mark Holland, what can you say to a lot of rural Canadians out there who absolutely detest and have always resented the fact they had to register their shotguns and register their rifles? What would you say to them?
Well, you know, I hate registering my car. It drives me nuts. I've got to go and put a sticker on it. I've got to get my license renewed. I've got to go annually. I've got to do my taxes. You know, there are things. I've got to register my pet. You know, there's all kinds of things we have to register, and nobody likes it. I sympathize with that. My grandfather was a hunter. I have tremendous respect for those who own weapons and want them to continue to do so. The question is, just as when we register our cars, is if it provides an important safety function, then we have to do that. And it's not a reflection at all to say, because we're asking you to register your weapon, that we don't trust you somehow, no more than we're asking somebody who registers their car that we somehow don't trust them. It's the reality is a gun, like a car, is something that requires an enormous amount of responsibility, and that registering them enhances community safety and helps our police in doing their job.
Mark Holland, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thanks so much, Dale.
Mark Holland, Liberal MP for Ajax-Pickering. He's the Liberal critic for national security and public safety portfolios. Let me go to the phones and sample a little opinion there and come back to you two in the studio. Here's Brian calling from Ottawa. There's Brian. Brian, what do you think? Does Canada need a long gun registry?
Oh, hi, Dale.
Hi.
No, it doesn't, actually, and it was working quite well under the old FAC system. Now,
that's a firearms acquisition certificate, is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely.
All right.
Now, the problem is the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police have received hundreds of thousands of dollars from gun registry contractors. They are not a government organization. They are a special interest lobby group, totally unaccountable to the public. You have absolutely no access to information with these people. I tried, and I was told, we're not subject. So Taser International gave them $250,000. I'm sorry, but their ethics advisor resigned over their corporate sponsorship, so they don't have any credibility.
What are you suggesting, that their opinion is being purchased by this company?
Absolutely. And
okay.
Wendy, Cukier, who's sitting right next to you, has received over $500,000 from the previous Liberal government, okay, in grants and contracts for the gun registry-related issues. So I'm sorry, but all of this is colored by money.
All right, Brian, thank you very much for that. I better go to Wendy Cukier and have her defend herself. What's he talking about?
I have no idea. I'm a volunteer with the Coalition for Gun Control. I do not receive any payment. I have a full-time job at Ryerson. The Coalition for Gun Control, received $320,000 over 3 years from the National Crime Prevention Center through a competitive process. Had nothing to do with the registry, had to do with public education in Quebec. So, you know, lies, lies, lies. As far as the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police is concerned, they've passed not one but about 7 resolutions since 1991 supporting the registry, and yes, they've taken funding in recent years from a number of corporate sponsors. I think it was $40,000, not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, we're not here necessarily to defend the association, but
really, fundamentally, let's look at the facts. The facts are that in spite of what Greg, in spite of what Ms. Hoeppner says, the Supreme Court of Canada, and I'm sure our callers will say the Supreme Court is biased as well, but in 2000, the Supreme Court of Canada said very clearly, you could not sever registration from licensing. You needed registration to enforce licensing. If Greg has a license, and I'm sure he does, and is a law-abiding gun owner and responsible, but he has 50 guns, and none of those guns are registered, there really is nothing to stop Greg from giving 2 of those guns to you, even if you don't have a license. And this is exactly what happened in the murder of the 4 RCMP officers in Mayerthorpe, Alberta. It was not the murder weapon, but a registered gun left at the scene is part of what led to the conviction of 2 men as accessories.
Let's get a little equal time here from Greg then. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. Some of the convenient facts that are overlooked by the coalition and by Mr. Holland himself are the fact that unfortunately we had an incident in this country at Dawson College which involved the death and injury of several people. The shooter in that case had 3 firearms, all of which were registered. That did nothing to save those people or to stop him from using that. Mr. Holland suggests that police associations across the country who speak for police have not stood up and said this registry needs to go. Well, the Saskatchewan Federation of Police Officers, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Calgary, Edmonton have all called for the elimination of the gun registry over the last 3 years. Former Toronto Police Chief Julian Fantino said that the registry does not solve crime or help save lives.
Okay. I thought you were going to reply to what Wendy Cukier is saying about a couple of things. 50 guns? You have 50 guns?
No.
Well, how many do you have?
3.
3? That's a long way from 50. That you could give one to me, and then I would be in possession of a gun that nobody knows I have?
How does the registry stop that?
Because if your name is on the gun and Dale uses it in a crime and he's caught, it will be traced back to you and you'll be held accountable. And that's exactly what happened in the Mayerthorpe shootings.
And you're suggesting that legal, law-abiding firearms owners across the country are running around out there handing over their firearms, which will then subsequently be used to commit a crime?
Not very many, but enough so that accountability is important. It happened with the murder of the 2 RCMP officers in Saskatchewan as well. Dagenais got the gun from his father. You mentioned the Dawson College shooting. That actually was a restricted firearm, not an unrestricted firearm.
All 3 of them?
Yes, and right after the Dawson College shooting, in fact, the Montreal police chief has said the registry was used to remove guns from another young man who was making threats.
Okay, we want to get back to the phones here and hear what people have to tell us. Here's Carol. She's calling from Brandon in Manitoba. Carol, what do you think? Does Canada need a long gun registry?
Oh, hi, Dale. I think this argument or this discussion back and forth is just great. We really need to hear it, because I think just as a viewer or listener trying to ferret out what seems to make common sense and what doesn't, and I think it was mentioned before, and I do agree, there is a certain amount of confusing or conflicting information, so I think if once, it gets into committee, and I think the more people that we hear from on both sides, from what I've heard so far personally for me, I think that if we're going to register anything, of course I would like to see a lethal weapon registered versus, say, my dog or my cat.
Well, you still have to register your dog and cat, you know.
Yes,
yeah. Yeah.
I understand that, and I think I think because it is such a it is something that can harm or kill. Yes, definitely. It's not, for me, it's like a no-brainer. But that's my opinion, and I think perhaps there's probably a lot of people who feel this way, and those, I guess, on the other side who look at it as a restriction on their freedom. But I want to live in a country where I know that the police are kept safe. If, for example, if they have to enter a home that there might be some abuse going on and they don't know if there's a weapon or not, and just for me as a Canadian walking or anywhere and knowing that it's just one more way of securing my overall safety, I guess.
All right, Carol, thank you very much for your call. Greg, let me come to you with a point that's been raised, I think it was raised a little earlier as well. What precisely is the problem with registering the gun from a point of view of a person who has a gun?
Well,